Good morning, algebra classes. This is for my 4th and 5th period algebra classes. So today's topic is section 3.3 in your textbook. We're going to be solving inequalities with multiplication and division. So if you don't already, get out a piece of paper and get something to write with, and your calculator will come in very handy today as well. So get those three things: paper, something to write with, calculator, and write down this topic: solving inequalities with multiplication and division. While you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and do an example of what we learned yesterday, just to refresh us. Yesterday we did solving inequalities with adding and subtracting. So for example, if you had y minus 3 is greater than 7, you solve it just like you would an equation. You have to do the same thing to the left and the right side of the inequality sign. So whatever you do over here, you have to do over here as well. And you look for the variable. You say they're subtracting 3, so I need to add 3 to both sides. 7 plus 3 makes 10. These 3's cross out. You have y on the left. And then in the middle, you write down the same sign. Y is greater than 10. Then you have to graph your answer. To graph your answer, you put it on a number line. You put the number on there and put a few numbers around it. You figure out if you should have an open circle or a closed circle on the number. The number is 10. I think I need to have an open circle on 10 because this says that we want all of the numbers greater than 10. It doesn't say greater than or equal to. So we do not want the number 10 to be on our line. We only want everything that's bigger than 10 to be on our line. Then we can use this little arrow to figure out which way to draw my line. The arrow's pointing to the right, so I follow my line to the right. And that's it. The answer is y is greater than 10, and these are all of the numbers that are greater than 10. If you wanted to check your answer, what you can do is you can pick any number on this line all the way up to infinity and put it in the original equation and see if it works. For example, I'll just take 13 since it's right there. 13 is on this line. That means it's a solution to this inequality. So if I put 13 right here where y is, the sentence, the inequality should be true. So if I put 13 there, this will say 13 minus 3 is greater than 7. Well, 13 minus 3 is 10. Is 10 greater than 7? Yes, it is. That's how to check your answer. If you get a number like 6 and it says 6 is greater than 7, that's not true. And then you know you did something wrong up here. And you have to go back and check your work and see where you went wrong. So this is just a little something to show you how to check your answers for these inequality problems. Take a number that's on the line, like 13, put it back in the original inequality and see if that's true or not. We're going to come back and do this again a little bit later in class. Right now, we're ready to start our new topic. And you all will notice that I actually have a whiteboard that erases now. I don't have to pause the video every time I want to erase. Yes. So let's start our topic for today. We're going to solve inequalities that involve multiplication and division. These are still going to be one-step problems, so they're not going to be very hard. Let's do one like this. 3m is less than or equal to 6. If this were an equation, if it said 3m equals 6, then you would ask yourself, what's being done to the variable? Do the opposite to both sides and get your answer. And that's exactly what you do with this inequality. Here are the two sides of this inequality. This is the left side, this is the right. Find your variable. What are they doing to it? Are they adding 3? No, there's no plus sign there. Are they dividing by 3? I don't think so. They are multiplying by 3 because there's no sign in between the 3 and the m. So m is being multiplied by 3. What's the opposite of multiply by 3? Divide by 3. That's right. So the 3's cross off, and you will have m all by itself is less than or equal to 2. That's it. Then we would graph that answer. We are supposed to graph our answers today. So draw a number line, put 2 on it, put a few numbers around it. I will want to have a closed circle on 2 because this says I want all the numbers that are less than or equal to 2. So I want a closed circle that shows that 2 is on my line. And then I will follow this arrow to the left, this way to the left. This is my line that shows all of the numbers that are less than or equal to 2. There's 2, 2 is equal to 2, 1 is less than 2, 0 is less than 2, etc., etc. Let's do another example. How about -2 is greater than or equal to x over 5. -2 is greater than or equal to x over 5. Let's solve this inequality. If this were an equation, we would find the variable and see what's being done to it and do the opposite. And that's exactly what we do with an inequality too. Here's my variable. There's a 5 underneath it. What does that mean? Is 5 being subtracted? No, I don't think so either. Is 5 being multiplied by x? No. It's sitting underneath it. Fraction bar means that x is being divided by 5. So I have to do the opposite of divide by 5. I need to multiply both sides by 5. -2 times 5 is -10. And then I put this sign between them, greater than or equal to. These 5's will cross off, and I have x all by itself. Now, some of you are looking at this and you're remembering what we learned yesterday, that if we have the variable on the right side, we need to switch this so that the variable's on the left side before we graph it. So I'm going to put x on the left. I'm going to put -10 on the right. And then I have to flip this sign over. Instead of greater than or equal to, I make it less than or equal to. Over here, you'll notice this little poster that I have. It says, when do you flip the inequality sign? When you switch the answer and the variable. When you move the variable and the answer to different sides, that's when you switch the inequality sign. And we're going to add something to this list before the day is over, too, by the way. So when do you flip the inequality sign? If you take the variable and the answer and switch them onto the other sides, that's when you flip the sign. Anyway, now I can graph this answer. X is less than or equal to -10. So here's -10. There's -9, -8, -11, -12. I need a closed circle on -10 because it's asking for all the numbers less than or equal to -10. And this arrow right here is pointing to the left. So that's the direction I need to draw my line. These are all the numbers that are less than or equal to -10. So this is the answer. Let's try another one. Let's do one more regular one, and then I'm going to blow your minds with a brand new rule. Let's do one more normal one first. Let's see here. What if we have 3/4 y is greater than 16. Let's do that. 3/4 y is greater than 16. All right, we're going to solve this one. It's the exact same way we solved all equations. We look at the left side, we look at the right side. Find your variable, see what's being done to it. They are multiplying by 3/4, so you need to divide both sides by 3/4. Divide by 3/4. The 3/4 cross off. We have y is greater than, let me get my calculator, 16 divided by parentheses, 3 divided by 4, end of parentheses. It says 21.3 repeating. Let me just remind you how to put this into your calculator. Remember that when you divide by fractions, your calculator freaks out and it doesn't always do it right. You have to type in 16. You have to type divided by. You have to press open parentheses. 3 divided by 4. And then close the parentheses. And then hit enter. If you don't have a calculator, you might want to get one. So anyway, our answer is y is greater than 21.3. And we can graph this. You can graph decimals, you can graph fractions. What you need to do is find 21 on the number line. Here's 21, and here's 22. Put a couple other numbers around it. So 21.3 would be somewhere between 21 and 22. It's not quite halfway. 21.5 would be halfway. So 21.3 would be right about here. So you find the two integers that surround your decimal, estimate where it would be, and then graph it. Let me see. This says we want all of the numbers greater than 21.3. So do we want an open circle or a closed circle? Open circle, because there's no line under the sign. We don't want it to equal 21.3. So we put an open circle, and all the numbers greater than 21.3 will be this way. The arrow points to the right. There we go. All right, I have one more type of problem to show you, and this is where it gets a little tiny bit tricky. It's nothing we can't handle, it's just something that you have to remember. Let me show you another example. -5h is less than 50. We're going to solve this the way we've been solving everything. We find our variable. We see that it is being multiplied by a -5. So we'll have to do the opposite to both sides. We're going to have to divide by a -5. H is being multiplied by -5. 5 is not being subtracted. You look between the H and the 5. They're being multiplied, so we have to divide by -5. The 5's cross off. We have H here. We have less than. 50 divided by 5 is 10. Different signs, negative. So that's the answer I got. Now, you remember I told you how we can check our answer? We can graph this. Let's graph it. Here's -10, -9, -8, -11, -12. We need an open circle on -10 because it's not equal to. So we want an open circle, and this is pointing to the left. So I'm going to draw it right here. Now, we're going to see if I did this problem right. We're going to check our answer. We're going to take one of these numbers from the number line, any one we want, and see if we get the right answer. I'm going to take -12. It's on the line, so it should be an answer to this inequality. If we have -5 times -12, is that less than 50? Let's find out. 5 times 12 is 60. Different signs, positive. I'm sorry, same sign, positive. So 60 is less than 50. Wait a minute. Is 60 less than 50? No, it isn't. So what happened? What went wrong? This can't be the right answer. The reason we went wrong here is because there's a rule I didn't tell you about, and I'm going to hang it up over here, and you're going to need to put a big star in your notes and write this down because it's super important. It's something you have to memorize. When do you flip the inequality sign? There's another circumstance when we have to flip the inequality sign. If you multiply or divide both sides of the inequality by a negative number, you have to flip the inequality sign. I want you to take a minute and write that down. Make sure you have this rule written down and make sure you have this rule written down. Take a minute and write them down, and I'll read them both. When do you flip the inequality sign? 1, when you switch the answer and the variable, like we did yesterday in class. If you make 5 is less than x, x is greater than 5, if you flip the answer and the variable, you have to flip the sign. But the new rule for today, this is another time when you have to flip the inequality sign. If you multiply or divide both sides of the inequality by a negative number, if you multiply or divide both sides of an inequality by a negative number, and you don't have to write this example because we have one right here where we're going to go back and flip this sign. This can be our example for this rule. If you multiply or divide both sides of an inequality by a negative number, you have to switch the sign. Let's look back at this problem and see, did I multiply and divide both sides by a negative number? Yes, I did. Right here. I divided both sides by a negative 5. Since I divided both sides by a negative number, I can't have less than anymore. I have to switch it to greater than. I know you're asking yourself, why? That's stupid. Why do we have to do that? Because if you don't, the answers are wrong. It's just that simple. I don't like this either. I never liked this rule, but I didn't invent math, so don't blame me. If you multiply or divide both sides by a negative number, you have to switch the sign or else your answer is just wrong. So let me erase this line. We have to graph all of the numbers that are greater than negative 10. So my line needs to go to the right. Once again, I know you're thinking, I don't like this. Why do we have to do that? That's dumb. I quit. You can't quit. Sorry, you have to pass algebra. But you just have to remember this. It's just something you have to remember. If you multiply or divide both sides by a negative number, you have to flip the sign over. Let's do another example. Let's do, let's see. How about v over negative 2 is greater than or equal to 1.5. Yes, we can have decimals today, and that's okay. V divided by negative 2 is greater than or equal to 1.5. Okay, find your variable. Here's V. V is being divided by a negative 2. That's what fraction bar means. V is being divided by negative 2. So you have to do the opposite. and multiply by -2. Multiply by -2. The -2's cross off, and you have V on the left. You have, let's see, 1.5 times 2 is 3. Different signs, negative. -3 on the right. And should I just write this sign down in between them? No, because I multiplied both sides by a negative number. That means I need to switch the sign. I need to make greater than or equal to less than or equal to. And then I would graph this. Let's go ahead and graph it really quickly, and then you all are going to do some workbook problems. There's -3, -2, -1, 0. We need a closed circle on -3 because there's a line under the sign. We want it to be equal to -3, and we want all the numbers less than -3. That's these numbers down here. All right, you all are going to practice some problems in your workbook now. You're going to open up your workbooks to page 87, and you're going to do a few problems in there. I want you to be aware of something. There might be a problem where you have to do this and switch the variable because you have to switch sides, and you might have to switch the sign again because you multiplied or divided by a negative number. So there might be a few problems where you have to flip the sign twice. Go ahead and try. Page 87, all of the problems, and then when you resume the video, I will go over some of the problems. So pause the video now, and when you're done, we'll go over the answers. Welcome back. Let's check your answers to the workbook problems. Number 1. X is greater than -3. You need an open circle on -3 with a line to the right. And for that one, you do not flip the sign because you multiply both sides by a +3. You don't multiply both sides by a negative number. You get a negative number as an answer, but you're multiplying by a positive number for number 1. So you don't flip the sign. Number 2, we get W is less than 4. Open circle on 4 with a line to the left. Number 3, P is less than or equal to -8. We have a closed circle on -8 with a line to the left. And for that one, you have to switch the sign, and I will go over that one because it looks a little different than the others. Number 4, Y is greater than or equal to -3/2 or -1/2. You need a closed circle on -1/2 with a line to the right. Number 5, X is less than or equal to -9. Closed circle on -9 with a line to the left. Number 6, K is greater than or equal to -3/2. Closed circle on -3/2 with a line to the right. Oh, that could have also been -1.5. Number 7, M is greater than 2. Open circle, line to the right. Number 8, T is less than -4. Let's see, we have an open circle with a line to the left. Number 9 is C is greater than or equal to 3. Closed circle with a line to the right. Number 10, W is greater than -7. Open circle with a line to the right. Number 11, Z is greater than -4. Open circle, line to the right. And number 12, D is greater than or equal to -12. Closed circle, line to the right. Let me just go over a couple. I think we have time to go over maybe 2 of them. Let me go over, let's see, let's do number 4. Number 4 looks like an interesting one. It says 1 is greater than or equal to negative 2/3 y. We're going to do this one step at a time. First of all, we see what's being done to y. Y is being multiplied by a negative 2/3. Negative 2/3 is not being subtracted, it's being multiplied. So we have to divide by a negative 2/3. Divide by negative 2/3. Let's see. Over here, the negative 2/3 cross off, and you have y. Over here, you have 1. And then the sign in between them, do we need to flip it? I think yes. We just divided by a negative number. That means we have to flip the sign and make it less than or equal to. But we end up with one of these situations. We have the variable on the right and a number on the left. That means I need to move the variable to the left and the number to the right. And what do I do when I do that? I have to switch the sign again. So it ends up getting switched back to greater than or equal to. And that's okay. This is one of those problems I told you about before the workbook started, where you have to flip the sign twice. Once because you divide by a negative number, and then a second time to put y on the left-hand side. Now we can graph this. Here is the number 1. Here are a few other numbers around it. We need a closed circle on 1 with a line to the right. That's number 4. I also want to do number 3. Number 3 looks a little different. It has 4 is less than or equal to P on the top, 2 on the bottom, and a negative sign in front. Okay, let's start. Let me see here. P, it looks like P is being divided by 2 over here. So since P is being divided by 2, we're going to have to multiply both sides by 2, multiply by 2, and you get 8 on the left. The 2's cross out. You have P on the right, but what else do you have on the right? You still have this negative sign on the right. We did not divide or multiply by a negative number. We multiplied by a positive number. So we don't switch the sign yet, but we're going to have to now. This says negative P over here. We need P to be all by itself. There was a shortcut that I taught you a while back where I said you can just pick up this negative sign and throw it over to the left-hand side. That, when you do that, is the same as dividing by a negative 1. You're basically dividing by a negative 1 when you do that, and now you are dividing by a negative number. So when you move the negative sign over here to make it negative 8 on the left, P on the right, you're dividing by a negative number. So you do have to flip that sign. Now, unfortunately, this is so much work. Now I have one of these situations where the variable's on the right. So I have to put the variable on the left, the number on the right, and flip that sign again. This was another problem where we had to double flip. Now I think that's all we have time for today. So there is no homework this weekend. Enjoy your weekend. Starting next week on Monday, we are going to start having homework again, and I'll talk to you more about that on Monday. We will have a quiz on Tuesday next week for your class. Your class will have a quiz on Tuesday. So we will review what we've learned so far about inequalities on Monday and have a quiz on Tuesday. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. Goodbye.